before. This is, of course, a challenge, but it can also spur some new ways of thinking, some new ways of reaching out to people and to each other. The session will be taped, so for those speakers that would not like their contribution to be shared, they will not be available, but the others will be available afterwards, also taped. The Life Science Cluster, as most of you know, we have approximately 90 members across industries within life sciences. This includes health, as is the main topic for today's meeting, but also marine, agricultural, and industrial sectors. And as we see, there's a lot of convergence between these sectors. So, for instance, in the agricultural or marine side, developing drugs or diagnostics for animals is also regulatory, increasingly complex. So many of the same issues as are relevant for the health sector is also relevant for other companies that are developing other types of products. You need collaboration partners, you need key opinion leaders or reference partners, you need investors that are interested, and so on. We are very happy to have a very good panel with us today. So I think I will just jump into introducing the first one. Just, you are the COO and partner of Biotech Gate and Venture Valuation. You have been in Biotech Gate and Venture Valuation since 2001. You have been working with both then valuation of startups and also business development and building the business development database that you have in Biotech Gate. And as we have seen this spring, you took that opportunity. You have a fabulous database of companies and you have created a conference based on this database. There will be a new conference next week, and this meeting is also inspired by you turning around so quickly to see how to do business development in a new way. So Just, the stage is yours, and we look forward to hear more.
Excellent. Many thanks, Annemette, for the kind introduction. It's a great pleasure for me to quickly show you a little bit how these platforms work and how you best make use of that for your business development activity. Just a few words about me, as Annemette mentioned. So our company is called Venture Valuation. We have three business fields. So one is a valuation business. We do valuations of companies or products, usually for licensing or for venture capital financings. Then we run Biotech Gate, the business development database, since over 15 years now, where we systematically collect data about life science, biotech, pharma, medtech companies, about the products, the pipelines, the clinical trials, the management contact details, and so on. So for us, it's crucial to have good information for this database. We have different ways to collect this data. We run web crawlers. We have a team of analysts in Europe, India, in China, collecting the data. The companies can update the profiles themselves. And then last but not least, we have our own partnering platform. It's called Hello Partnering, which is a conference matchmaking platform, which we will use at the next Biotech Gate Digital Partnering event. And so that's kind of our third business field. And I would like to show you around a little bit how to use that. I want to show you a little bit maybe, or to give you some insights, some tips how you can benefit most out of this partnering event. I think it's best if I share my screen to show you around a little bit. Okay, I think you should see my screen now, the Biotech Gate website. So as you can see, that's the website of our main business development database. And then, as I mentioned, we have this digital platform. The partnering platform is called Hello Partnering, but our own conference is called Biotech Gate Digital Partnering. I don't know if you have already registered for that. If not, it's still possible. You just can go to digitalpartnering.com. You can register for free and start your partnering activity anytime. You see here, that's how the website looks like. There's a button, free registration. Just click on it, follow the screen, and you can register. After that, you can then log in. You find the login button on the upper right corner, and that's now what I would like to show you a little bit, so you can see how the system works and how you can actually then do your partnering activity. Most of you, or I assume that a lot of you probably already joined such partnering meetings. You know that, there are a lot of partnering conferences organized, like the Nordic Life Science Days or the BIOS, BioEurope, and so on. I think most of these conferences use partnering systems, and that's a very, very similar system. It's one of the systems usually used at these conferences. So let me just quickly log in, and I can show you around a little bit. The purpose of this partnering platform, of course, is that you can make your conference as efficient as possible. I can imagine in previous times I went to conferences, I was just kind of walking around, and so without such a system, I think it's very hard at the end of the day to meet the right people. And here with such a system, it's possible that you can pre-arrange your meetings. But this at the same time, of course, this also means that you have to do some work before you go to the conference or before the digital meeting starts. As Annemette mentioned, so the Biotech Digital Partnering, so our next digital partnering meeting will start next week on Monday, actually, and last until Thursday. So I kind of would like to invite you to do as much activity before the conference, so that there's enough time that the system can schedule your meetings, and that people you want to meet, that they can see your meeting requests, and that they can accept your requests and schedule the meetings. Now what you can see here is kind of the first screen after you logged in. If you logged in the first time, I can quickly show you, you will see kind of a step-by-step wizard that will guide you through the system. So if you log in the first time, it's important that you just follow some steps. You can see them up here. First of all, you have to complete and publish your profile. This means you have to make it available to other participants. Then you have to define if you want to keep your profile for future conferences so that we can upload it to our Biotech database and import it again. You have to define your availability. Then you can search other delegates and send meeting requests. And then, of course, you can answer incoming meeting requests, and then the system will schedule the meetings for you. One remark you can see here on the upper right corner, there's a help section. So in case you should be lost, or for instance, if this step-by-step wizard would not show up anymore, you can show it here. There's also a guide, we call it navigation hints, that tells you and explains you where to find what information in which section. And then we have here 2 PDF files. That one is just a quick user guide, and one is explains how you can hold your online meetings. And now what I do, I just quickly run you through the system in the similar or step-by-step as you would do that in the beginning. So you see the first step, if you enter the system, is that you complete and publish your profile. You find also this tab up here. You can either click here or here on top in the main navigation where it says profile. So that's the information you can enter about your company, about your products, about your colleagues, and so on. If you have a profile in Biotech, and I assume most of you have one, because the Life Science Cluster is a partner of us, so we try to be as complete as possible and to map the Life Science Cluster as good as possible in Biotech. So if you have a profile in Biotech, there will be a button here if you visit this section the first time, and it will ask you if you want to import your profile from Biotech. And I would strongly recommend you to do so. You can still edit your profile, but if you do that, all information information is entered, your address, your website, categorization, the products, your management, and so on. You can edit what you want, you can delete what you want, but it just makes it a little bit easier for you to start. You can see that's the company profile. You can see by default, you have different sections. If you're a biotech company, you can add your therapeutics, very detailed, which phase, what indication, and so on. We have such areas for all kinds of parts of your profile, or all kinds of offerings you have. Maybe you have diagnostics, medical devices, technology platform. You can enter that here, or just other services and products. So you can enter that in services. You can even add your closed financing rounds, your management. And I think one thing that's pretty important are your conference goals. Here you can define what you actually are looking for. So what the reason is that you are joining this conference. So are you looking for clients and partners, or are you looking, for instance, for assets to in-license, and so on. So this can be very, very detailed. So that's the company profile section. Then if you click on top, you can go to the personal profile. You can also upload a picture if you like here about yourself. So that's just your personal information. And what's important down here is you can define your notification preferences. So the system, the partnering system, will send you emails if you receive from another participant a new personal message, a new request for a meeting, if a meeting was scheduled, rescheduled, canceled, and so on. And in this section, you can define if you want to receive them instantly, daily, or not at all. So just that you know, if you believe you receive too many emails of us in the personal section, you can modify these sections. However, we recommend to leave this on instantly, so this way you're notified instantly if somebody would send you a new meeting request, or if somebody would cancel a meeting, and so on. Okay, so that's the profile section where you can enter your information. Then next step is the agenda. That's a pretty important page. That's actually where you can define when you are available and when you're not available. This is, as Annemette mentioned, it's a virtual, it's a digital event. We have participants at the moment. I can mention that we already have nearly 1,000 delegates registered. We expect again to have more than 1,000. We already had in May. About 2/3 of them published a profile. Some of them are not visible in the system yet. And so as this meeting is digital, it actually takes place 4 days, 24 hours, right? We have people from Australia, from China, from the US. So it's very important here in the agenda that you keep an eye actually on your time zone. You see the official conference time actually is UK time, but the system will actually, based on your browser and computer settings, it will read actually your time zone. But if you click here, you can change that if you like. So you can just add your country. I mean, you are in the same time zone, for instance, as we are here in Zurich, and then you will see here the actual local time. So that's important if you set your availability. So for instance, you see I've set here 2 slots available. One important input from my side, set as many slots available as possible. You still can reschedule meetings or change that later, but it's just most efficient, and the likelihood, of course, is the highest if you have a lot of slots available here. So very important, please do not forget, go to the agenda page. You see there are tabs for the different days, Monday, Tuesday, and so on. So set your availability. This way the system knows when you're available for a meeting and when you don't want to join a meeting. Then, so that's, as I mentioned, the agenda page. That's on the one side, the availability. Then what you can see here on the right side as well are every day we organize 4 coffee break sessions. So the idea of this is to have kind of the possibility to meet other delegates informally, as you would at a large conference during a coffee break, or while you are standing in a coffee queue waiting for a coffee, so that you just can click here and then you can join such a session. You see there are, as I said, 4 sessions a day. That's in your time. One is at 7 o'clock. You can see that here, it even tells it here. Then one at 11 in the morning. Then there's one here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then we have one in the evening at 7 o'clock. So you can join that. If you click here, you're registered automatically. If you can't join, you can unsubscribe anytime. And some of them are guided. You see here, for instance, I mean, they're all guided, sorry. They are done with our colleagues that they're called Coffee Buddies. It's a Professor Tony Sedgwick and Graham Combe. So they will kind of a little bit moderate that. And if there are too many people, they will create subgroups so that you can talk a little bit. There will be a topic, an initial one, you know, just that discussion can start, but it should be kind of an informal coffee break. So if you have time, join such a session. I think it can be nice just to meet some people informally. Then a very important part, of course, is then to create your meeting requests. So at the end of the day, you want to meet people, you want to meet companies, you want to do business. For this, we have the search sections. So you see here, you have, if you click on search, what I just did, you can see here on the left side, you can see different search sections. You can search for companies, you can search for delegates, you can search what others are looking for. This can be interesting. So you can try to find a match of what you are offering. You can search for assets and products. For instance, if you want to in-license or interested in license, you can say, okay, who has a out licensing available, for instance. So here you see it's important that you fill in your profile. This makes it the chance higher that others will find you and send you a meeting request. I can do, for instance, here kind of a search. Let's have a look. So let's say I want to meet people who have products available for licensing or available for licensing in the future. Let's say we select some specific phases here and so on. There are also indications. You see, you can be very precise. Then you can click search. And then, for instance, now you see the system now found 60 results. So you can click here on such a result, and then you have all the details, right? And you can see these are now that's the pipeline. You can then see the company details. You can see the delegate. So you see it's a company in the UK. You can see what they are looking for. They're looking for an investor. They are looking to out-license. Then let's assume you think it's interesting. You click here the send request button. You see that here, you see that in the result list. So you send them a request. You can add a subject if you want. Just right now, friends, let's meet. Of course, you would that a bit more formal, and you just submit this request. And then the other party receives a notification, can accept or decline your meeting request. That's how it works. You see you have all the search sections. There's even an A to Z search. If you have premium access, which you have as part of the life science class, you can even download results to Excel. You can do A to Z search for delegates and so on. So just click on send request to send somebody a request. And the messenger is actually where you then manage your request. So here you can see that's the message I just sent. This here is also where you would see when you receive a request. So if somebody sends you a request, you could see it here. Then here you see you have different buttons. You can cancel meetings. You can, if they are scheduled at the time that it's not a fit for you, you can send a rescheduling request. And the system schedules this requests automatically based on your availability. We do that several times a day. So as soon as you accept the meeting, it might take an hour or so and the meeting will be scheduled. So that's the messenger, important. So here where you can manage, accept, decline, and so on, your requests. And then actually the output of all this here, or actually the goal while we are doing that, is then at the end of the day, the meeting schedule. So then you will have a plan that you know when you can meet and where you kind of meet with the other parties. And you see now here in my schedule here, I have now already 2 meetings scheduled. And you see you have then here in this schedule, you have this link, click to start online session. If you click on that link, this brings you then to this page where this session will take place. Now, obviously, we are far too early. You see it even tells you here how long it will take. So in 7 days, 18 hours, this session will start. 5 minutes before the session officially starts, there will be a button. You can click on it and it will open a Zoom session. So actually, if you arrive on this page on time, Zoom will open automatically, right? But as we are too early now, you just see this countdown, and you still can check here your time zone so that you know what time the meeting will take place. You can also, from the agenda, download the meetings to your Outlook. You see here, it says download calendar. So just click on that and it will download an ICS file, which you can have then in your Outlook, and then start these meetings from your Outlook automatically. That's possible as well. And by the way, these links to open the session, they're more or less available on almost all pages. You can also start the session here from the agenda page, or they're also available in the messenger. You see here, it says click to start online session. That's available here. Yeah, so that's a little bit an overview. Maybe one more thing to mention, I forgot to say, what you can do as well, if there are several delegates of your company, you can actually here click on this area, edit participants, and you can add or remove your participants. So for instance, you see here we have a meeting which both of us, Patrick and I, will join. So you can edit this easily anytime and add your participants. Of course, they have to be available the same time, and then the meeting can find a slot when you're available.
1 minute left, Just.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm almost done. I think an important message is, I mean, we started developing our first partnering system. I think it was about 12 years ago. So I've been in this partnering system business since years. And one thing very important is you really have to think about to prepare these conferences. And it's also a bit a number game, right? You can not just send 3 requests and then expect you have 3 meetings. You may have, I don't know, to send 20 or 30 requests if you want to have 5 or 10 meetings. It's just a bit a number game. You have to prepare it. You have also to think about what you write here. Actually, it's a bad example. Be a bit, think about ideas, you know, all this marketing message. So also here, I think it's important that you tell the people how they can benefit for you, how you can help them, how you can solve the problems. That's very important. For each company, you find actually the delegates. So I would use a personal salutation, say, hi, Joe, it would be nice to meet you, and so on. That will increase the chance to meet these people. So be creative and take your time and send a lot of requests in advance of the conference. And I think this should then this should then make it possible that you will have a good conference and some good meetings. I think that's it from my side. I'm happy to answer questions now or later if there should be any questions.
Thank you very much, Just. I think we will collect the questions to the end of the session. And I'm very impressed also how quickly you, as a Biotech Gate and Venture Valuation, with a database and experience from valuation, how quickly you turned and also made available a digital conference. So thanks a
Yeah.
lot for the detailed introductions to this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we already had a partnering platform. We had to implement some enhancements to make it digitally to make it work, in a digital format. So we were pretty busy in spring, actually. Yeah.
Very impressive how quickly you turned around and met the needs.
Thank you.
So thanks a lot. And then to the next speaker on our list, Chelsea Ranger. She's now supporting the life science cluster as a consultant with business development and investor relation work for our portfolio of companies. And you have a scientific background. You have also many years of industry background, both in the development, the business development, and also commercial roles. You also have been working with our Swedish colleagues on different topics, including also the Nordic Life Science Days, which is a matchmaking conference that is going on every September. Unfortunately, this year it's postponed until April, but we look forward also to be able to meet physically again there. But the same issues as we have started looking into now is how to be able to do some of the same things digitally as we usually would have done meeting face-to-face in these conferences. So Chelsea, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's nice to be here sharing this information with you guys. I've decided to turn on my video so that for those of you who don't know me, you can get used to what I look like and who I am. So as Hanna-Mette mentioned, I'm working together now with the Life Science Cluster on some business development and investor relations consulting. And what I'm going to be talking to you about today is some of the best practices when it comes to partnering meetings, what sets them apart from other types of conferences that you might be attending if you're looking at a specific academic or therapeutic area. But some of the same rules apply regardless of whether or not we enter these meetings from a face-to-face setting or a digital setting. And some of the rules apply regardless of whether or not you're coming from the health sector or if you're coming from food and agri and other types of industries. So I'm going to share my screen and give you guys a little bit of insights here. There we go. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of an agenda, I'm going to introduce myself. Hanna-Mette already started. I'll give you a little bit more insights into what it is that I have done, am doing, and why I'm in this role. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what is specific to partnering meetings, what you can expect at these types of conferences, again, regardless of whether they're face-to-face or digital, how you prepare and leverage the system, what it means. Yost started this, but there is a best practice when it comes to meeting requests, so I'm going to target what those are. How you should prepare your presentation, and these meetings, again, are quite short, so how should you handle the meetings themselves? I'm going to offer up a few don'ts. There are a couple that are quite important. I'm also going to mention how I typically follow up with a prospect, and then obviously highlighting a couple of important things about what's digital, but then of course I feel like Jost has covered quite a bit of this. So as Hanna-Mette mentioned, I have a clinical background. So I was trained in the US as what you call a certified physician assistant, and I specialized in hepatology and gastroenterology. So I primarily worked in private practice and consulting in hospitals, but I was also a didactic and clinical lecturer at Mercer Medical University. For the past 5 years, I've predominantly been working in MR imaging and digital health for a startup out of Sweden. So I was their chief business development officer and then their SVP of commercial and market strategy. For the past bit over a year now, I've been working in my own consulting group. So this is how my relationship with the Life Science Cluster is developing. I'm doing the business strategy and investor relations consulting for them. Also working for a company called Holocare as the director of clinical strategy there. And then, as Hanna-Mette mentioned, Nordic Life Science Days, I'm developing the program, which will be in April of 2021. And Hanametta and I are also working together on a new event called Nordic Life Science Invest, which will be the first ever investment day for the Nordic Life Science community. It will be a pre-event next April as well. When it comes to conferences and B2B partnering experience, I've been in this industry for some time. So personally, I've attended over 40 professional meetings. I've managed through various roles, 75 meetings and conference attendances, including all the B2B engagements. So I've done everything from technology to therapy specific, as well as these specific B2B orientated meetings. When it comes to how partnering meetings differ, there are a couple of key things. First of all, these are not your traditional academic conferences where you're going to be having poster sessions and new highlights coming from the field. They're going to be much more orientated towards what's happening in the industry as a whole. What are some of the visionary things that are coming into play in the industry? These are also meetings that are much more structured than organic, although ideally in face-to-face settings, you get a bit of the organic as well. And they're almost entirely focused on business development or investor relations. There are some really great things about these meetings and some reasons why you should take advantage. And Joost sort of walked through exactly what this system does. The system does the grunt work, right? So it sets your meetings well in advance of the conference itself, and it coordinates the availabilities of, as you saw, 1,000, sometimes several thousand attendees to make sure that everybody gets the meetings that they would like to have. These conferences also come at strategy from multiple angles. So you're going to see everything from the larger industry insights to the greater visions, as well as specific sessions that are therapeutic and product driven. They're very business oriented. So it is intended for those of you who are seeking partnerships in or out licensing, investor relations, or if you're looking for a specific service or vendor. They are high touch events as well. You can tackle all of your core business needs, essentially all of them, in one setting, which means you have more meetings and less travel. Also another asset with the digital as well. And the return on your investment can be huge. So at least when we're talking about some of these face-to-face meetings, like your Nordic Life Science Days, your Bio Europe, your Bio in the US, for those who are in the life science sector, or the health sector, then, you know, these are quite expensive events, particularly for those who are young startups or newly out of an academic spin-out. However, the return on your investment can be very large because 1 or 2 deals would not only cover the conference costs, but very far beyond. It's intended to be corporate speed dating. So when you have your meetings, you're not trying to land a business deal in the meeting. You're basically trying to score a second meeting, and that should be your focus, is doing your pitch. I have managed over 36 meetings at a 4-day event, and that requires quite a bit of work up front to do your prospecting and your meeting requests properly, but I'm going to show you how to do that. So again, this is a bit specific for those of us who are in the health sector, but this is applicable across industries, right? Because the purpose of these partnering meetings is that you have all different types of players coming under one umbrella. So you might meet your R&D collaborators or a university or a TTO office. You're also going to meet multiple different types of service providers, those who are in diagnostic tests or biological tests, medical imaging, partners for your clinical trials, in silico models, funding and licensing. I mean, all of these groups are going to be located in the same area. So it is really important to define your goals, but also to think broadly, because you can tackle a lot of needs under one umbrella. There are 5 basic things that I think are very crucial. Joost touched upon all of these. One is to prepare in advance. To utilize the system that's available to you, follow best practices with the meeting, handle the meeting well, and structure your follow-up well. So when it comes to advanced preparation, ideally you're going to register for these types of events early. Typically as well, conference costs are cheaper the earlier you register. So that's one factor to take in consideration. But also this online partnering system that you have, it opens long before the event to give you plenty of time to prospect, right? And then ultimately weeks before, you're going to have your availabilities matched, and you're going to start getting meetings peppered into the schedule that you've opened up. And that will happen all the way up until the actual day of the event. So you should be making sure to watch your schedule because you might have new meetings come in even on the same day. And then the earlier you start requesting these meetings, the better likelihood that you're going to match the availability of the partner in question. So it's important to know what you're joining for, right? So are you looking for an investor? Are you looking for a partner, a specific research collaboration, or a specific vendor? And it can be all the above, but then know who it is that you're looking for. And then know whether or not you have any specific criteria. So are you set on a certain geography? Are you looking for a small CRO rather than a full-scale, large global CRO? Pepper in those criteria so that you can better understand what you're searching for. And when it comes to leveraging the online partnering system, as Joost showed you, the goal of the system is to show you who your potential partners are and then to connect you directly with them. So what does that require? Well, it requires that everybody kind of follows the same ideals. And the ideal is you share your public profile and you make it informative. Couple of important things though is you want to include non-confidential company information, and that will go for the meeting itself as well. You want to include why you're attending and specifically what it is that you're looking for. And so using keywords that help to identify you, whether it's your sector within the industry, your specific therapy area, these things will help the right people to find you. Opening your availability is important, especially as Joost said, is if these meetings are running 24 hours, then you're accommodating lots of time zones. You don't want to have opened up the wrong availability. It's also important to set enough availability to potentially accommodate the fact that you've got lots of schedules you're trying to coordinate, but make sure you block yourself a coffee break. Search, I'm not going to reiterate that. I think Joost did a really good job playing with the keywords, the filters, and the criteria. I do recommend though, because not everybody populates their profile as well as they could, right? So ideally everyone does, but what I recommend is that when you're looking at a potential prospect into their profile, I also always take a look at their website as well. And then return to the system often so that you're checking for whether or not there have been new and relevant registrations, and also to review and answer all of your meeting requests. When it comes to best practice with meeting requests, there are a couple of key things that I recommend. Joost touched upon these as well. It's important to personalize, right? So networking for the sake of networking is not as vital as networking because you're truly interested in getting to know the other parties. So introduce yourself, use your best manners, explain why you would like to meet the other individual. What is it that you've noticed about their profile, their product, their website that has sparked your interest? And also I recommend to be a bit brave. So where companies list why it is that they're joining this meeting or what specifically it is that they're looking for, they may not have listed the things that describe you. And yet I would still, if they are interesting to you, send a meeting request, but specify why so that you have a higher likelihood of being accepted. Be open as well, because you might also get meeting requests that on first glance seem uninteresting. Do a little bit of research, maybe ask some questions before you decline a potential meeting, just because it might surprise you. Be humble. The title of the individual that you might be meeting might not seem relevant. So you might be meeting somebody who's a junior business development manager. But all of the people who are showing up at these meetings, they're keyed in. So again, this is corporate speed dating. You're going to do an initial introduction, and then these people are keyed in to open doors for you. I would recommend staying in the system. Again, this applies less to digital meetings, but I recommend limiting the number of meetings that you schedule outside the system. So at least at face-to-face events, you want to stay in the partnering system as much as possible. And setting your expectations. So acceptance rates are going to vary, as Jos said, so it's a numbers game, right? Send as many requests as you can. I've seen acceptance rates go, you know, upwards of 30–40%, but an average being around 20%. When it comes to preparing your presentation for the meeting, so I create slightly tweaked presentations because if I'm meeting with a potential academic partner or somebody from the university sector versus somebody from a pharmaceutical company versus an investor, then I'm going to have slightly different content that I want to populate that presentation with. So this is to be a bit aware of who it is that you're going to be meeting. I also recommend a 10-slide maximum, and that's pushing it. That's recommending that you speak quickly and have practiced your presentation. But it's important to highlight who your company is, what are the key points, what is your overall value proposition, more specifically, what is the unmet need, whether it's locally or globally, what is your novel solution. Again, I recommend sticking to non-confidential details. Tell about your team. You can tell about where you are in the funding process, information about your product. You can state information about your patent or regulatory status. You don't necessarily need to go into details. Competition and the standard of care. Again, this is focused more on the health side versus what it is that you're bringing to the table that is advantageous. And then finally, what are your needs and interests for moving forward with the potential party that you're meeting with? So these are key things that I would make sure to include on these 10 or less slides. When it comes to the meeting itself, I always say come well prepared. Make sure that you have your business cards, less necessary on digital meetings. I'm always a fan of taking notes rather than typing on a computer. People can think you're getting distracted if you're typing on a computer. Having your targeted presentation, having other information to share digitally after the meeting as well. I believe that 2 colleagues are better than 1, but 3 can be overkill in some of these digital meetings as well. If your availabilities are overlapping, then maybe you want to spread your colleagues out. But if you have 2 colleagues, then it's nice to have 1 who is presenting and 1 who is taking notes. The notes are important because there are key details or specific tasks assigned to different parties, and those things can become difficult to forget if you have 6, 7, 8 meetings in a day. Know your time. These meetings are booked typically on 30-minute slots. So what I recommend if the meeting is 30 minutes is taking 5 minutes for a mutual introduction, brief chit chat, each side having 10 minutes to present. So that's 25 minutes, and utilizing the last 5 minutes to assess whether or not this relationship has potential and set the next steps for what it is that you need to do. A few don'ts of partnering conferences. So these are don'ts both prior to the meeting and during the meeting. One is using your phone. I recommend putting the phone upside down and away. Don't show up late or unprepared. These meetings are often scheduled back to back, so you don't want to limit that 30 minutes that you already have. Don't spam. And what I mean by this is the personalized meeting requests that you send out are important in being personalized. People can quite easily read if a meeting request has been copy and paste across a number of different parties. Don't share your confidential information. These are non-confidential meetings. And don't over-present. Don't utilize too much of the time. How I follow up, again, you got to think back to your goal. Success in this case is scoring a second meeting. At the end of each day, I structure my to-do list so that I have each meeting and all of the tasks in a clear way. Within 1 week of the conference, I email the party that I've met with, thank them for the meeting, and request a follow-up meeting. If 2 weeks have passed and I haven't heard back from them, I might send a second email, but I don't go past 3 attempts. I would then consider it a dead lead unless I have new, particularly relevant information to share with that party. And I don't need to go through so much of this since you've covered a lot of this, but what's different about digital is going to include the fact that you have a number of virtual meeting solutions. Those solutions will be provided to you by the conference itself. And as you've said, these conferences can run now for 24 hours to accommodate all the different time zones, but this makes marking your correct availability and your time zone properly important. And as we all know, we've all figured this out, particularly in 2020, technology issues show up. So it's important to arrive on time and be as prepared as possible. And that's it for me. Oh, Hanameta, you're on mute.
Sorry.
There we go.
Thank you very much, Chelsea. This was very useful and very comprehensive. So I think both new and seasoned business development people have found something to learn from your presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So to our next speaker, Jonathan Gertler he is the CEO of Back Bay Life Science Advisors. He has over 30 years of clinical and scientific experience. And he's also the founder of Back Bay Life Science Advisors back in 2010. You have been working both on the buy and sell side of transactions, both on the biotech side and also the large company side, and also experience with the same from investor dialogues. Jonathan, we look forward to hearing from your thoughts and experiences, both in general and the situation. And we're also a little bit excited to hear whether the sound works.
Thank you very much, Hannah, and it's such a pleasure to be here. Everybody, Hannah, I know you and I are connected by text. I've been having some bandwidth issues, and so two things might happen. One is that I might end up calling in my cell phone. Two, I may end up walking closer to my modem and my wireless, my router, but hopefully this is working. But Hannah, please let me know if I'm not transmitting properly.
We can hear it clearly now. So this
very good. Okay, well, I hope this continues. So I want to
just 1 second. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, I can. I hope everybody else can.
All right, great.
Okay,
yes,
thank you for checking. So I'm actually here today wearing two hats. I am the founder and CEO of Back Bay Life Science Advisors, which is an integrated strategy consulting and investment banking group. We are more than 10 years old. We've probably completed 700 assignments, numerous deals. And I would emphasize as well that for a host of personal and business reasons, we've had extensive ties to the Nordics. We worked and have active engagements actually currently in Sweden, in Denmark, in Norway, and in Finland. And so that is active now, and it still constitutes a very large part of our focus. So this particular meeting is one that is near and dear to us. In addition, we partner very closely with DNB and invest in Sweden, invest in Finland, on the Nordic American Life Science Days here in the United States on an annual basis. We've been supporters of the Danish Innovation annual meeting as well, and are in a normal world over there probably every 4 weeks. So pleased to be meeting with all of you today. And in addition to that, I do want to note that I'm one of 4 partners in a BioVentures MedTech funds, BioVentures Investors MedTech funds, which is a growth capital and also soon to be raised innovation fund in Boston, but with an international focus on medical technology, which is very broadly defined, and actually also intend to have BioVentures be an active participant in the Nordic ecosystem. So I'll speak with you all today from both of those perspectives as we talk about enticing partnering and investors. My own background, just very briefly, in addition to what Hannah said, I had about 20 years of academic medicine experience. I was an associate professor at Harvard Medical School and one of the 5 operating surgeons in vascular surgery at the Massachusetts General Hospital, where I also ran the diagnostic as well as the research laboratories. I left medicine in the early 2000s for this side of the fence, but I will say that Back Bay Life Science Advisors, BioVentures, and I have never left the critical cornerstone issues of healthcare behind. So many of my comments will, of course, be focused there. If I can move to the next slide, I'd like to start with that. And Hannah, let me just again do a time check. I'm leaving about 20 minutes for this. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Approximately to 5 past.
Okay, very good. I will be concise. So in addressing partnering or investor preparation, and I certainly appreciated Chelsea's very organized logistical approach and sage advice around preparation. I want to address the content of what goes into this, and I really want to address it from the perspective of those with whom you'll be meeting. We have an expression which was actually derived from an American political expression many years ago called "control the debate." It's something that you'll see in many political circumstances. People, especially in this era of social media or prejudgment, lose control of the message that they're trying to impart. And the most obvious reason for losing control of the debate, and when you are meeting with partners and when you are meeting with investors, it is indeed a debate, is that you don't have all of the facts at your fingertips, which the partner or investor might have at hers or his. And that is often the case, especially in companies that have less availability of funding, can't do the work necessarily that is so known to the investor or to the potential partner. However, that said, I'll also state emphatically that partners and investors come to meetings with extraordinary bias. And your job, unfortunately, is essentially to have done your reverse diligence before the meetings, to know what their biases might be, to know what their misperceptions might be, and to know also what data or experience they have at their fingertips. And in doing so, you can control that debate when you're in the meeting. So what I wanted to do on this slide, and then I'm going to do a specific slide around attracting American investors, because it's not an easy task, and nor is it always a task you want to do. And I'll get into that. You don't necessarily want American investors unless they're the right ones. But let's talk about partnering and investor preparation at the moment. And these two are really highly overlapped in many ways. There's the categories here are essentially the categories of what you want to be able to present. And I'm going to then dive in deep on each of these, but to review these succinctly, and I do think the point about having succinct preparation is a good one and presentation is a good one. Start with your problem. Tell everybody what you're trying to solve, why it is important, why you're not just another me too. Follow with your solution. Understand and absolutely be able to articulate why the markets are attractive and why they are approachable. Come in with a vision, and especially in partnering, and especially as a European or Nordic company, regional versus global vision becomes extremely important in this conversation. And I will say, having done billions of aggregate consideration and deal making over the course of my post-medicine lifetime, these are the issues. The last category are remarkable minds in the field that can explode on you. Intellectual property, pre-existing licensing, pre-existing economic relationships. And lastly, and I'll go into this, be funded from a position of strength. So I wanted to use those 5 specific bullets to then dig in deep, but state emphatically that if you come in with those totally under your control, if it's a fit, the meeting will be successful. If it's not a fit, there's nothing you can do. But if it's a fit and you can't articulate these, then you don't capture the imagination and the vision of the person on the other side of the table as well as you should. So let's talk about how you would address each of these in detail. The problem that many have, especially, I would say this is even truer in health tech than it is in biotech, and I know we can broadly approach all of these, and also this is true in technology leveraged services, is that what is defined as the unmet need truly needs to be the unmet need. There are, unfortunately, and I think you see this in the explosion in biosensors, for example, in different engineering approaches to cardiovascular disease, just as several examples. There are many times engineering solutions that are in search of the right problem. There's no question that much of health tech starts with an engineering insight that is then applicable to the field of healthcare, let's say, or some other field. But that problem needs to be very clearly defined. It's also can be difficult, and I'm saying this with full respect, having spent about 35% of my time in Europe and the Nordics, especially over the last decade and more, that what appears to be a problem in the Nordic or European region may not be one in the American region, or more specifically, it may be a problem, but one that Americans don't recognize. And that is a clear issue that is our fault, not the world's fault. Our healthcare system is evolving and frankly zigzagging all over the place at the moment, but we will come, I think, to a very specific place that is very much akin to many of the European solutions for healthcare. So with that, make sure that problem is very clearly articulated, and also that you understand that there's competitive intensity involved. The biosensor field, which is a very, very strong field in the Nordics, is one in which at the moment I'm probably seeing 10 business plans a week. So it's not that it's not in need of a number of solutions, but you have to figure out how to differentiate yourself in the presentation. And that comes to the second set of slides, your solution. Technology attributes are critically important, and technology attributes is they are differentiated from those around you. Not me too, not just cheaper, not just faster, but why they are having an impact on the market you're serving is critical. But even more important is a highly engineered and able to be articulated approach to the development trajectory. And here I will speak again to a problem of being underfunded and sometimes a problem of being in the Nordics or in Europe. The regulatory, commercial, and clinical hurdles in the United States differ. They are more unified in some way, more fragmented in other ways, but also regardless of the overlap between European and American regulatory hurdles and commercial hurdles, they're very different economic considerations in terms of doing this. I'm not advocating, although if you could, it's ideal. I'm not advocating that every small company that is existing on smaller amounts of funding come in with a fully baked US or North American regulatory and commercial plan, which inevitably reflects the clinical plan. But having a clear understanding, at least of the scope of what you need to do and the scope of what the expense can be is critically important. And with that, I will say budget clarity becomes extremely important as well. You need to be able to, because it's going to figure into valuation negotiations, you need to be able to articulate where you think the inflection points will be in your regulatory development, how they translate into value for you, and then lastly, how much it's going to cost because it influences the investment process. In terms of the markets, we're seeing a lot of product, we're seeing a lot of platform, and we're seeing a lot of platform in the product. Please know when you're going into these partnering meetings or investor meetings, what it is that you have. Products that standalone are extremely important, and they're important to pharma companies, biotech companies, medtech companies, and investors. Platforms are highly attractive, but more problematic in that they are extremely expensive to develop, and inflection point value is usually only given when it's at a product level. So even if you have a platform, getting to that first product and using the principle of prove, replicate, and scale is critical. And lastly, if you do have a product that is applicable across a number of indications, make certain that you have the understanding of how you pursue those indications, which are the ones that you can achieve more rapidly, which are the ones that follow on with value creating replication, and which are the ones that belong in a large company or in a much more larger funded company where you can expand beyond that. Regional versus global vision is a critical issue. I've had many, many buy-side assignments over the course of my life, and also many times companies have come to me for investment where management has not been clear as to what they have in terms of capabilities, what it costs to build out those capabilities, and why they want to partner in the first place. And it's interesting to see, we're just finishing a deal in the Nordics, and it'll be announced in the next couple of weeks, where the amount of negotiation pain that was experienced because of the lack of clarity over a regional or a global deal was really meaningful. Some of it was driven by the extant negotiations and values that were created for either the regional or the global deal, but some of it was a lack of clarity on the management and board's part as to really which was best for them. Know what you want when you're going in the meeting. It might change. It might change if you're doing a deal with Medtronic and you're trying to get a regional deal with them for development, or a smaller medtech company, or with Novartis. They're probably less interested in the regional deal. They'll probably bait and switch you. They'll probably come in and ultimately say, okay, we want to make this global. But if you don't come in with a clear definition of what you want, those negotiations won't go forward. It also shows that you've been thinking strategically. I commented about IP and pre-existing licensing and economic relationships. It's very easy to cut corners early on in an early stage funded company around intellectual property. And what's critically important is not just the filing of the patents, but the ability to litigate the patents, to own the patents, to prosecute the patents. And that transfer of rights is critically important to partners or to acquirers or to investors. And similarly, and there are many companies that try to do this, creating a holding company in which you drop a lot of IP and then you out-license for one indication can be fruitful, but it can also be dangerous because you can end up with pricing discrepancies, which then don't play well in partnership discussions. The same is true with pre-existing licensing and economic relationships, either with founders, with inventors, with universities. Ensure that what you're negotiating at the time you're doing it will play well 5 years, 8 years down the line. And many companies have an enormous internal sophistication around this. Sometimes it's worth bringing in an outside transactional expert to help with this. The bottom line is, of course, there should be no surprises in diligence. And lastly, as you'll hear on the next slide, be funded, if you can be, from a position of strength. Nothing makes you more vulnerable in an M&A debate or a partnering debate or an investment debate than the specter of running out of money. So let me, if I may, go to the next slide, which I'm going to cover quickly. Just say simply that it is tough to attract US investment. And here's the reason. And I'm not going to be complimentary to US investors. We are egocentric. We're prone to local investment. We like local comfort. We like being able to work very closely with face-to-face mentoring with our companies. Knowing the local mores, knowing the local management is imperative to any approach. And also, a lot of venture investors sit on many boards. They also have to focus on fundraising. Overseas travel is not ideal. And at the risk of being blatantly self-serving, I will say that there are funds that actually don't take this view because they see that, especially, for instance, in the Nordics, there's tremendous technology, there's great management, and the ability to come in there with capital and with expertise that is global becomes a highly attractive value proposition as well. So look for those that understand that. Understand that a value-driven investment group will find that working with local syndicates is extremely helpful and it expands horizons. That they have a full understanding of the markets that you will need as a Nordic-based company to then drive your exit on a global scale. And as I said before, prove, replicate, and scale. Don't overreach in your presentation. Make sure the financing plan is rational. Don't underreach. You can't extrapolate from a very small country market to large exitable markets. Take in the capital you need because the most dilutive thing in the world is undercapitalization. And if you have an asset that is best served by angel and small investment, go there. If you have an asset that's best served by a prove, replicate, and scale approach that is much more money, then find that financial vehicle. And I will end with one comment, which is that a good investor does not just deploy capital with a term sheet that protects the investment group. They start relationships early. They counsel you as to how to be the company you should be in order to then attract the investment at the right time. And I will say that from both my hats, Back Bay Life Science Advisors, which spends a great deal of time doing this with companies, and from the BioVenture Investors Group, and my partners and I do this as well, those relationships are critically important. None of us want a one-off experience. So I'll go to the last slide, which merely says thank you to the organizers, and thank you to all of you for the chance to present. And the last slide, if you would put it on, has my contacts, and I would welcome all of your contacts at any time that is relevant. So hopefully I think I'm right on time, and again, I'm very grateful for the chance to present.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan. That was very valuable. So thanks a lot for all the insights. And I also really appreciated many of your comments, but especially the last one, that the people that you are meeting, they are counseling you to be the partner that they want you to be. So listen carefully to the questions that you get from partners. Of course, you shouldn't jump all over the place. You need to make sure that it's within your strategy. But talking to experienced and seasoned people on the other side of the table definitely gives you additional insight that will make your case even better in the next meeting. So thanks a lot, Jonathan.
Thank you. Hi, John. It's nice to see you.
Hi, Jonathan.
John and I are local. I haven't seen him in months. I'm really happy to see your face.
Well, I look forward to getting together when prudent to do so.
Yes, absolutely. Masked or unmasked when the right time comes. Thank you, Hannah, and everybody in Iceland for all of your help.
And so now we actually managed to connect people on, at least with office addresses on 2 sides of the Charles River. So that's great. So good morning to you as well, John. Thanks a lot for participating and your willingness to share your views. John Hallinan is the Chief Business Officer of MassBio, which is our kind of sister organization in Boston. It's a very big sister though. Oslo is a little bit smaller, but we have an increasing amount of exciting life science. And this is also why we would like to hear some of the reflections from MassBio, both in general on making connections, but also in these very strange times. So John has been with MassBio since 2012. Before that, he has been in the life science and software industries. So he will bring views both from the cluster side and also from the industry or company side. And also from our point of view in Europe and in the Nordics. How does this situation look from the Boston-Cambridge side, and how are your reflections and your thoughts on creating partnerships and having dialogues under these circumstances? So the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see the screen? Is it up now?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to start out a little bit about myself. 28 years in the industry this year. I started out in the tech industry in software, and that allowed me to migrate into the life sciences through computational chemistry. I'm not a therapeutics person. All of my companies have been computational chemistry, biology, biostatistics, in silico tools, and all of my successful companies secured pharma partnerships and investment. I always felt deficient in the science coming from a tech background. So one of the things I did early in my career, which is pay dividends throughout my career, is I got to meet people. I went out and personally met them, connected with them, and found out what they did, why they did it, and where it kind of fit in terms of the workflow of discovery and development. And for me, it was a way to learn. People have called me the consummate networker and connector. I would say that I wasn't networking as much as I was trying to learn, and I very much viewed them as human interactions, and that's really important. I was recruited to MassBio 8 years ago. I had been a dues-paying member and a volunteer for MassBio for 20 years before that. I told the MassBio board I was not a scientist, my predecessor was, and they said, no, but you are a connector. I would note that I probably attended all of the industry conferences, and I am aware of the pros and cons. I want to start out by noting MassBio right now, and people are paying a lot of attention to the cluster. MassBio started in 1985 by 6 small struggling biotech companies. None had a drug on the market. And they supported MassBio as a trade association to support the nascent field of biotechnology. And if you fast forward to today, those original 6 members have grown to 1,300 plus in a complete life science ecosystem. And MassBio supports the industry from bench to bedside. This is a really interesting slide because people think Massachusetts, they think large pharma. The reality is, even today, 70% of the MassBio members have less than 50 people. And if you look at this timeline, MassBio started in 1985. Most of the big pharmas migrated here 2008 and afterwards. Now, what happened in 2008, 2009, 2010? There was a global economic recession, I think, that impacted the industry, and the impact of that was felt around the world. Why did they migrate here? They came here to connect and access external innovation and talent. I have a group that performs academic outreach and engagement. This is really the connective tissue between academia and industry. We feel that academia is an important node of innovation, and academia and industry don't naturally connect, so they need some help. We act as a connective tissue and the concierge to make sure that that happens. MassConnect is one of our signature programs. These are pre-Series A entrepreneurs, often recruited directly out of the university lab. They have company names, but they're really companies in name only. These can be a solo entrepreneur or a small team. And we assign mentors who are volunteers and who take these aspiring entrepreneurs through an 8-week program. There's 8 meetings, 1 meet per week for 1 hour, so 8 hours of total meetings. From pre-funding, that $150 million raised after MassConnect has gone up. 15 golden tickets to Lab Central have been awarded. Those are a free year of lab space at Lab Central awarded by a larger pharma. 2 of our MassConnect grads have won Bayer fellowships, and most importantly, 50 plus partnerships across MassConnect grads. Pharma Days is another one of our signature programs. I noted earlier that I have attended every pharma conference in the industry over 28 years, and I'm aware of the benefits and the weaknesses of a lot of these. And we intentionally designed this where we act as a concierge. And this is really a safe environment and a marketplace where the sellers and buyers of biopharma innovation can connect. And unlike all the other industry events where meeting the right person or company is often due to serendipity, we act as the concierge to make sure that the right connections are made. These have generally been in-person events. We had a full pipeline in 2020 that got deferred. We will soon be announcing our first virtual Pharma Day. The Innovation Services Group that works for me, what do we do? We have a platform where we can source, think academic outreach engagement. We can de-risk, think MassConnect. We can partner through Pharma Days, and we can fund with our relationship through venture capitalists, angels, and family offices and alternative investors. We have a motto: we convene, we connect, and that acts as a catalyst for the system. But it's important to know, convene with intention and connect with purpose. Now, everything that I've learned in my career, both before MassBio and after MassBio, connecting in a virtual world may seem to be more difficult because you're basically restricted email, phone call, virtual conferences, social media. However, I would also add that it's probably not that much different than in the past. You can't go to these big industry conferences, but the chances of meeting somebody at those conferences, and especially the right person, are pretty slim. If you're familiar with the concept of 6 degrees of separation, this was first proposed in 1929 as a theory that said that you could connect to anybody in the world through 6 degrees. Well, Facebook has come out with some data which suggests that it's less than 5. Twitter seems to back that up. LinkedIn has 1st, 2nd, and 3rd degree connections. And everything that we do at MassBio Innovation Services, I like to consider precision connection. You've heard the term precision medicine, and it's the same thing here. You want to get to the right company, the right person, with the right dose at the right time. An intro from a mutual acquaintance helps. Think back to the 6 degrees of separation. You can probably get to your target through somebody you know. it's really important to make them understand why they should connect with you. Also, even if you get a warm intro from a person, it's probably safe to say that they are bombarded with approaches, and you need a way to separate yourself from the pack. And be specific with the ask. I get a lot of emails from people who are saying, let's connect, let's network. That's undefinable. And you need to be really specific in terms of how you want to connect to the person, what you want from them. You're much more likely to get a response. And lastly, be creative. A lot of people on LinkedIn, they're affiliated with groups. You may have a commonality there. They belong to professional societies. Also, you can look at where they went to school. And there are often alumni associations that can help you as well. Connecting. I would note that of the pharma partnerships and the investments that I secured in my career, they were done via email. Email is not the best forum for communication. There are some things that I've learned over my years in the industry. Email address conventions are standard. So if you have an email address from one person in a pharma company, you probably have the others. Importance of the subject line. I spend a lot of time composing the subject line. Many people do not. And I think this is a way to capture the attention of the person. Be very specific as you can in terms of your intentions and what you want that person to do. Draft the email and edit it before you send it. With the tools that are available now, specifically with Microsoft Outlook, there's a lot of formatting capabilities. You can actually format an email more like a classic business letter and make it look really nice. And it's really important, and I think it's a good idea when you draft the email, send it to yourself and read it. How does it look and read on the iPhone and the computer? And also, if you have a target, if your target is pharma, medical device, or any large company, the chances are it's going to be trapped in their email filter. So they're going to be reading it on their iPhone or their Android, and they're going to be looking at their email filter. Why should they release that email or permit? Importance of the gatekeeper. Senior executives often have gatekeepers. How do you find those people? LinkedIn is a great source. If you have the name of a particular person that you want to target or a title, you can also search that via LinkedIn. If you can find the gatekeeper, those people are very important in terms of the chain of the relationship. And again, why should they connect with you? That's really important. Unless you have the cure for cancer, we all know why they should connect with you. But beyond that, you have to make clear, what are you trying to help them with? Is there a problem that you're trying to solve? Why should they contribute your time? And again, be very specific with the ask. Don't say, I want to network or I want to connect. And I have found in my career that when I followed these simple principles, I have a high degree of probability of connecting to the person, or they will make a referral for me. Another thing I've learned in regard to pharma today and also pharma early in my career, if you look at right now and you think back to the Mass Connect slide, we have 50 plus partnerships between Mass Connect grads and large pharma and medtech. Their need and interest spans development stage. They're going earlier than they ever have before. That is a good thing. For me, it's always been about relationships and human interaction. The deal can be the result, but that's a transaction. You really need to figure out how to form a relationship with those people and develop the relationship to the point that somebody within the organization is going to be your champion. If you get the first meet, the goal of that meet is to secure the second meet. The first meet is probably just going to be an intro. Preparation is absolutely key. You can find a lot of information on the company website. You want to make sure that you're aligned with their R&D interests in their pipeline. Do you fit right within their near-term pipeline? Is there something competitive? or are you in a frontier area or a white space? That could make a difference in terms of the timeline of the conversations you'll have with the company. You can also find a lot of information about the company, both on the website and in databases like Evaluate Pharma and others. And I would note that you should look at not only the deals announced, but maybe if you can find things about the deals that were terminated, and then you can go and contact the company where the deal didn't work out. You can find out some interesting info about the company. It's not guaranteed that they'll talk to you, but it's always worth a shot. And research your pharma target, the person or the persons that you're going to be talking to. Again, there's a lot of information. A lot of people publish extensive personal information on LinkedIn. You can often Google and find where they have authored articles. You can search peer-reviewed journals. I think in some of the meetings I had with Big Pharma, where we actually secured a deal, I remember going in and they essentially had a dossier on the company and on me personally. And you can do the same thing. And patience is the key. This is a long-term process. I was not able to secure in my career a single pharma deal under 9 months. So it's going to take some time, but it'll be worth it. I want to conclude because people look into MassBio now, and we are considered the top biopharma cluster in the US, and maybe in the world. Jonathan and I remember when it wasn't always so. So before MassBio started, this was an aerial view of Kendall Square. And if you notice the Draper building at the bottom left, I'd like to call your attention to that. And that's Kendall Square today. And if you look sort of in the middle, this is the same view that you can see the Draper building as well. And let's see, I'd like to conclude by noting that I don't attend a lot of industry conferences. I mainly attend MassBio conferences. And we have this week on the 26th and 27th, our State of Possible conference, which is our big meeting. And in September, we have a big digital health conference that's coming up. And if anybody wants information about that, I can make sure to send that along. And again, we will be hosting a virtual Pharma Day soon, and I will make sure you all know about that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, John. And thanks a lot also for extending invitation to the digital health and to the virtual Pharma Days. Those are also very valuable offers to our community. And interesting to see the map also, where you think that it's always been like this in around Kendall Square. But as you say, it's been a tremendous change over the last decade or so.
Yeah, and it's really an evolution. And I note that there is a perception that MassBio in Massachusetts is dominated by Big Pharma, but that's not really true. They came here because we have this tremendous population of smaller innovative companies that are working on very innovative science and technology. And I think that that's really the core, plus our very strong academic medical center university base. And that's going to be increasingly important going forward. If you look at the pipelines of the big pharma companies and the medtech companies as well, their pipelines are really dominated by external innovation that's coming from places like Norway, Kendall Square. It's often difficult for them to connect in. If you look at Kendall Square in particular, there are hundreds of biotech companies within probably a couple square miles of the epicenter of Kendall Square. How does a large company connect in meaningfully to all of those? And so if you look at what I do, what my group does, we try to act as that personal concierge to make sure that that substantive connection is really made. And that is really important. I heard Chelsea talking about speed dating, and that's often the problem with a lot of conferences. You can get a little bit of information and you can initiate a connection at the speed dating conference, but it's really important to figure out how do you transform that into a relationship, to figure out, can you get a deal with that particular company, or if not, get the feedback on why it's not possible at this time.
Yeah. And I also like your reminding us of the 6 degrees of separation. That's also maybe an inspiration onto how to do partnering or reach out to people now in a very different setting.
Yeah, and I think it's something, it doesn't matter if we're in a world where we can convene or if it's virtual. I think it's a universal principle, and it's one that served me throughout my career. And I often say that I'm the dumbest person in any room in Kendall Square if measured solely by academic pedigree. What it also means is I had to work harder. So early in my career, I made it a point of establishing those connections as a way to learn about the industry and to basically increase my scientific IQ. And I established those connections early on. And it's all based on that human interaction principle. There's been a lot published about the neuroscience of human connection. And you're starting to see it in peer-reviewed journals. And many are saying that our need to connect is as strong as a need for food and water. So that's great for companies that are looking to connect into a pharma or a med tech to understand that it is hard, it takes time, but it can be done. And I always say, if I can do it, and I'm supposedly known as a consummate networker connector, then anybody else can do it.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, and I'm sure that you're not as novice in these fields as you maybe were in the beginning. So thanks a lot for all the learnings from your side as well.
Well, I hope it helps.
So thanks to all the panelists. I just want to make a couple of a couple of thoughts that I got on while talking to you, because also for all of the companies, remember that of course you do have a good case. That's why you are in your company. But remember that so does your competition. So all the other competitors also probably have good cases. So the point is not to show that you are good, but the point is to stand out between maybe 200 other cases that your partner is actually looking at in the same time frame. So learning from people who has done things before, don't be shy asking people for advice. People are very often happy to share experiences, as many of you have suggested also. And as stated today, prepare, and the most important thing of all, follow up. If it's not followed up, of course, it will not happen either. So one of your goals should be to be the one that they, your partner, your meeting partner, remember tomorrow. That's one of the goals. This company, I really, really would like to meet them again because I was wondering about this. So I would like to ask Chelsea, have there come any additional questions while we have been talking?
No, not that I've seen. I think we've been answering them a bit along the way. So Just Jonathan and John, if you have one advice to a Nordic company that is entering the stage in these times, what would you suggest to be able to be the one company standing out and getting that second meeting? So Jonathan, I think I'll start with you. Jonathan didn't hear, I think, so I will ask Just first then.
I think from my perspective, as I mentioned, it's key to invest some time if you want to meet. I think Chelsea mentioned that as well. It's very important. So you have to do your homework even to prepare these meetings. So you cannot just go to a conference and expect, you can't just do the business very quickly. You really have to prepare. You have to see who you want to know. So there's a lot of work actually for networking to be done. I think that's important from my perspective.
Thanks a lot. And John, you have given us a lot of good advice. So would you be able to sum it up in one overarching advice?
I believe it is in laser targeting your approach. Precision connecting, making sure that the company is the right company, that they align, and you're connecting to the right person, recognizing that time is the most valuable asset of any entrepreneur. And in my career, and even in my role now, I see many entrepreneurs who are targeting the wrong person for one reason or another. And that's just wasting time.
Very good advice. And also, Jonathan, if you're not on and able to connect now, I will just repeat also two of the advice that I wrote down from your side: to take control of the debate, have all the data you need available, and know what you want when you actually get a response from your partner. Be very articulate on what you actually are looking for. So with that, I think I will just say thank you on behalf of both on behalf of the audience and on behalf of the Life Science Cluster, and thanks a lot to all the speakers. And we will, of course, if any of you would like to reach out to companies, or if any of the companies would like to reach out to any of the speakers, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we will help connecting you. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.